always be revenue driven,
Mm-hmm.
never cost driven. Costs are always going to be there. If you're going to just look at the costs within a business, then you always are coming from a place of fear.
So joining me on the call today, I've got Pooja from ReAline You. Welcome to the call, Pooja.
Thank you, David. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Maybe give us a bit of background. What does ReAline You actually do?
Well, let me start off by the name in itself. It's a play on words. So if you can look at the spelling, it does say real you as well in there. And it also means realign you, as in bring back what you think you want to do in life and work, and realign that for you and make it so that it's aligned with your values and your vision for whatever it is you want to achieve in life and your work. So that's where I start off from. So having said that, explaining that already tells you what I do. I come from a teaching background, and I've taught adults and students, younger students as well, all my life. Mm-hmm. And I've also done a lot of training and coaching within a corporate space. And what I have noticed very quickly is that is something that I do very naturally and comes to me very naturally, influencing people, coaching them, helping them find what it is that they really want to do in life and motivating them to get there. So that's what my background really is. And that's what I love doing.
So tell me the problem that you solve. So obviously you're targeting people who run businesses.
Yeah.
What are the symptoms? So what are the problems that they're experiencing that means that you can help them?
The biggest thing that I find in my conversations with business owners is that their biggest issue is to be able to communicate effectively with their teams and getting their teams to make consistent and sustainable changes that will see a steady growth within their business and a steady productivity within their business. Sometimes they put things in place, but they find themselves going back to square one. It's not remained sustainable. It's not remained a change that can last as long as they want it to last. Sometimes people get really excited about the change, but they get back into their old ways. So my biggest passion is to find and help the business owners to make those changes sustainable by going through productivity habit changes. We all have our habits, which we do automatically, and we don't realize that that's what we are doing. But when we make those habits, change them and apply them, put new habits in place which can make those changes more sustainable, it becomes a little bit more automated. Think about it as automating systems and processes within a business. This is automating your brain to do things that you need to do every day to remain productive.
Okay, interesting. So you help people who have the problem of not communicating effectively with their team, but you also help people who have systems that are not being followed consistently.
That's exactly right. That's what I like to do.
Okay. So why did you choose this as the message or the core essence of your business?
Coming from, let's say, from a corporate background, I have always noticed that people are they get excited about something, and they never stay on top of it. When there are coaching and training that happens, at that particular moment they will take everything on board, but when it actually comes to implementing, it doesn't stay consistent at all. So what that does is, while the business owners or team leaders or supervisors, what have you, within a business, find themselves feeling frustrated because they can't get their team to continue doing what they're expected to do. And I have noticed that as an employee and as being a coach and a trainer within a corporate environment myself as well. And that is where that passion came from. And that's made me ask why. And that made me go and actually research the why and found that there is a solution to this. And there is because every person is different, the way to communicate to them is very different, and the why behind a certain things is also very different. So it requires a different way of coaching and communicating towards people that makes those changes more sustainable.
Yeah, right. Fascinating. So it sounds like you've been going for a couple of years. Let me ask you, in your time in business, what's been the best piece of advice that you've received?
The biggest piece of advice and the best piece of advice that I've received from my husband is, and that was very, very, very relevant to me. Always be revenue driven, never cost driven. Costs are always going to be there. If you're going to just look at the costs within a business, then you always are coming from a place of fear. If you're going to look at the revenue to make sure that that cost is met, you're coming from a place of comfort, from excitement, from a place of optimism, from a place of innovation, rather than from fear. So,
I understand. I often say to people, you can only reduce your costs so much.
Exactly.
You can increase your profit. You can increase your revenue infinitely.
Yes.
So there's much more upside than there is downside.
That's true.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, do you read any books or podcasts, or is there any author that inspires you in business?
I did have, I have a couple. Obviously, our Robert Kiyosaki is the staple. I think everybody should be reading him. I also have a couple more because it is very relevant to my studies. There's a gentleman called John Barge who works with the subconscious, and there's a book that's called Before You Know It, which I have absolutely loved reading. So these are a couple of people that I have absolutely loved reading. One is for practical reasons, obviously how money works. Second one is because I come from a lot of the neuroscience background, and that talks to me a lot because that helps me understand the brain and how we do things and why we do things. So that John Barge is one of those people.
Yeah, fantastic. So key element in that book, the key takeaway for you?
The key takeaway from that particular book is that whatever we do, our subconscious leads it. As much as we like to think it's our conscious mind that leads everything, we are sorely mistaken. It's a lot of our conscious actions are driven by a subconscious understanding of the world and the worldview. So it's very important to understand that. And the dance between your subconscious and conscious is very important. It might sound esoteric in the business world, but really it isn't, if you really look into it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because I think 90% of our decisions are made through subconscious or unconscious.
Exactly.
And if we don't think that's influencing how we make decisions, that's a bit naive.
It is very naive.
Yeah. And so interesting book, interesting perspective. Let me ask you, obviously we've gone through interesting economic times. What's your advice to people who are running businesses right now? If you were going to give some advice, what would you be suggesting to them?
I would always be suggesting that as business owners and leaders within the industry, it's one thing to, it's very important to see how the market is going. It's very important. However, finding opportunities within those markets is very important as well. As much as it's very cliche for me to say that, but sometimes we do get blindsided. We do have our blind spots. We do get funnel vision, and we will always keep thinking about the problems. But when we think about the problems, we sometimes don't see the solutions out of those problems. And I would say, look at the solutions rather than the problems, because that's the person who looks at the solutions is going to be the winner in current times. Interesting.
So rather than focusing on the negatives or the problems, looking at the solution, which is the desire
to come out of it.
Because I think we have had a lot of negative press in many different ways, and whether you like it or not, I think it does impact, even if you don't watch the news, because I'm not a news watcher.
No.
But you hear it from people, you hear it in the community, you hear it on social, and inevitably it does affect the way we make decisions.
In the age where information / misinformation is rife, It's very difficult to remain focused on what is the most important thing that we need to look at. And that's when I say the dance between the subconscious and conscious has to be very pertinent right now. What is it that you're feeding your subconscious to then make those conscious decisions is very important to look at.
Yeah, fantastic. So when people need resources to improve their time management or their skills, is there some place you would send them to? Because you've mentioned 2 books, Kiyosaki, but you've talked not really into the time management world.
Time management world, well, I'll leave the time management and time mindset world to Ildi. I'm more into the habit mindset and the productivity mindset. And when I say that, I would also suggest people read Atomic Habits by James Clear. That is very, very important for them to read.
Yes.
But all these 3 books will actually lead them to understanding more about what they understand about their own minds. And when you understand your mind and your brain and understand how important that organ of your body really is, and that you are able to influence it to create the outcomes that you're looking for in life and business, it makes a very big difference in the way you look at things. Yeah,
fantastic. Pooja, thanks so much for your time. They've been really insightful just to get an understanding of what makes you tick and what you do in your business. So thank you.
Thanks so much, David. It was so good to chat with you.
Cheers.